Welcome to Houston Sports Talk with your host, Robert Land.
Thanks for checking into the best Houston sports podcast. And joining me to talk Rockets is host of the Kiss of Death podcast, Michael Brown. Great to have you back, Michael. But how disappointing has this three-game losing streak been? Or is it even disappointing considering how they're playing overall?
No, it's not. Do I want to win? Of course. But if you're a Rockets fan and you've watched every game the last 3 seasons, this is Disneyland times Disney World times Astro World. Like, this is great because the team is showing strides. You know, they're taking those steps, and it's hard for a team, even when you bring in Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks, Jeff Green, Aaron Holiday. Aaron Holiday has been a heck of a find. You combine that with all of the young guys, they've got to learn how to win these games. And it would be different if they got blown out all 3 games. But Clippers, Lakers, Warriors, all 3 games came down to the last quarter, last 6 minutes, last 3 minutes. Dude, I'm not upset about this losing streak. They're learning how to win. And this schedule's been hellacious. I mean, it has been hellacious. The teams that they've had to play. They had the big stretch off, like where they didn't play for 4 days in a row. I think they had 4 or 5 off days. And then 3 games in 4 nights. And now you got to play Memphis tomorrow night. Then you got to play Denver on Friday. It's not easy.
Yeah, and you said it. I mean, it wasn't just that they lost 3 games badly. You had 2 games go down to the final seconds.
Yep.
And you had another game that they were in until the last couple of minutes of the game. And the other part about these 3 games is, I mean, they got doubled up on free throws over the course of these 3 games. I mean, it was a huge discrepancy, nearly 50, I think, free throws over the course of those 3 games. And, you know, a lot of times, Michael, we know this, it's about, you know, who you are. If the team's got a bunch of all-stars, they're going to get calls. And I don't think the Rockets are getting the respect yet. I mean, it's going to take some more time for them to get the respect from the free throw line. Also, I want to point out, though, I've heard from a national perspective, there's a national thought that the refereeing has not been all that great this year. There's some new people in the turnstile, I guess. And so I think that plays a big part of it too.
I think you make a good point. I also think when you talk about the game last night, the Golden State game last night, there were 2 different plays by Jalen Green. I'm sure we'll talk about Jalen Green tonight. Both at the end of the quarter, there was a foul on Curry, which turned into a 4-point play. Then there was a bad foul that resulted in 2 free throws. That's a 6-point swing in a 5-point game. And both of those were good calls. Jalen screwed up on both of those calls. So I think the refereeing, it always can be enhanced. It can always be better. But what the Rockets are going through right now are growing pains. This is what teams have to go through. They've got to learn. Come on. I mean, a new coach, 2 new stars on the team, and your top 5 pick isn't even playing in Amen Thompson. And then Tari Eason didn't play last night. Tari Eason plays last night, the Rockets win. Yeah, dude, I'm fired up. I don't know if you could tell. I'm fired up about this team. I love where this team is, the direction that they're going. I think it's full steam ahead.
Yeah, 100% agree on all that. And I just got to talk big picture with you for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with VanVleet, you've got the villain, Udoka, the emergence of Şengün playing at an all-star level. This team has obviously taken a giant step, but it feels like there's a real governor on their engine, so to speak, unless Jalen or Jabari takes a big leap at some point here pretty soon. And not that you need an all-star leap yet from those guys, but you got to get something. And Michael, I might circle back to Jalen specifically, but I want to start with Jabari. What do you like and dislike from what you've seen from him so far this year?
I love his attitude. Like, that dude is just tough. Is he a superstar? No. But I also think that people, I mean, I played the game in high school. I've coached, 13 to 16-year-olds for 5 years. What you have to think about is Jabari's game would have taken a much bigger step if Dylan Brooks wasn't here and if Fred VanVleet wasn't here. And that's not what's being talked about enough about Jalen and Jabari is they have to learn how to take a back seat to both Dylan Brooks and to Fred VanVleet. Both of those guys are options 1, 2, and Şengün. So you could argue those guys are options 4 and 5 on most plays right now if you're watching this team inside and out. The comp that I have for Jabari, and I was talking about this with a buddy the other day, if I guaranteed you Trevor Ariza for the next 13 years with Jabari, would you take it? because I think that's where he's going. I think he's trending more that way. Think Nicholas Batum, Trevor Ariza, those types of guys. And people are going to say, well, he was a top 5 pick. He needs to be better. Yeah, but if he's giving you that production and you're able to save some money, not having to pay him like a superstar, it allows you to allocate some of that money elsewhere. So Jabari, I'm not worried about because Jabari plays great defense. He needs to take more shots is what he needs to do. He needs to be more selfish when he gets the ball because that mid-range game last night was good. Like, that was solid last night. When he gets the ball and he knows what he wants to do with it. Same thing with Jalen. I'm more worried about Jalen than I am Jabari because Jabari can always lean on his defense, his length, his size. He's always going to have a positive when he's on the court. Jalen's a different story. And I've seen your Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. You have some very opinionated things when it comes to Jalen Green. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying you're right on all of them. But Jalen is the bigger question to me. That's where I'm at with both of them. I think giving up on Jalen, I think, is a little silly, especially because of the contract that he's on. Now, last night, he gets benched in the fourth quarter. That better be a wake-up call because there's some dudes right behind him that are going to be ready to take his lunch money. And that's Cam Whitmore. Aaron Holiday was given the reins last night. I don't love Holiday and Van Fleet together in the backcourt because you're giving up a ton of size, but with the way Holiday's been shooting the ball, that might be the better option in certain situations, like last night.
Yeah, at least until Amen gets back. And
exactly,
I don't see him as a Trevor Ariza is really not somebody, or Batum, and I would be a little disappointed if that's all he was. But before the season, I said Jabari needs to play backup center, and that's what I thought Udoka would do. Michael, I've loved nearly everything Ime's done. Playing Landale is not his best move, and everybody agrees that guy stinks. And as part of that mistake, not letting Jabari play center is where I've got the problem. And Michael, I'm done with force feeding Jalen the offense when Şengün and Van Vliet leave the game. So here's my proposal. I'm going to run it by you.
Yep.
Well, Jabari has much more potential offensively than Jalen right now. You can feed it to him in the post or at the elbow. He's got more variety to his game. With his size, he can get a shot off against anybody, as opposed to Jalen, who appears to be working his butt off just to find his shot on the court. So what do you think of making Jabari the center of the bench unit offense?
I hate it. I'll be honest with you. I hate small ball 5. Most of the time. It depends on who you're playing. Like
he's 6'11". It's not small, though. I mean, and the other part about here's the other part about small ball. First of all, I don't think he's small, and I think he's going to get bigger, and I think he needs to learn how to play center. That's number one. Number two, this is where to me, small ball is if you're playing that, 48 minutes a game. Who out, like what center out there am I worried about? I mean, there's no Jokic coming off somebody's bench. There's no Embiid. You're typically playing some scrub backup center, and I think having him play as somebody who can space and then get his buckets against backup centers in the NBA are typically not that great. So I don't, small ball to me, and look, Mike D'Antoni ran one of the best offenses ever playing small ball off the, he would have never put a Jock Landale in there at center coming off the bench because he just saw it as like, you play better players as opposed to bigger bodies when it comes down to that.
So a couple things. When I say small ball, he's not a 5, he's a forward. That's just the way he plays. Now, if he was thicker, he's too lean to play the 5. And then when you start talking about that, then who do you put next to him? Because the Rockets are a good rebounding team. They're not a great rebounding team. But I hear what you're saying. So is your proposition moving Jabari to the bench?
No. I'm saying
okay.
when
platooning him.
Yeah, no, I'm saying when like typically when they've gone to the bench, they've left Jalen in to be the offensive guy on the floor when Van Vliet and Şengün comes out. And here's what I'm talking about. Jabari, you could put him next to Tari Eason. Hopefully he's going to be able to play regular minutes pretty soon. But if you put him next to Tari Eason, if the other team's got some big guy that they want to put in the post or whatever, Tari can handle that. He's got the size and length and physicality to handle that. And if another team wants to post you up with some backup and bench units, fine, go for it. Because to me, they're playing right into the Rockets' hands. But I'll take Tari in the post or even Jeff Green in the post and let Jabari, he could still play almost the 4 defensively while he plays, on the offensive side. It gives you an advantage because you can play more 5 out than you can with Jack Landale that nobody respects. And also it gives you an option to put Jabari in the post, which to me, I just feel like that's where the real benefit for him is. Everybody out keeps thinking of him as just this guy that's a 3-point gunner, and that's not who I didn't think that's who he was coming into the NBA. I just didn't.
The problem with it, I know I like where you're coming from. The problem is you're a Şengün in foul trouble away, a game away from being in real trouble up front. Even right now, even if you want to play Jabari at the 5, my solution, we talked about it on the last couple shows, Clint Capella in Atlanta, 29 years old, familiarity with the franchise. He's not going to be that expensive. You can get him for Oladipo, Tate, if it came down to it, in picks. I do that deal because you need a Capella. You need a rim protector. Even Şengün's not a rim protector. And yes, I agree with you. How many centers off the bench are you going to come into contact with that are going to kill you? Not many. But if Şengün gets into foul trouble against, you look at the West by itself. You got to deal with Ayton. You got to deal with Gobert. You got to deal with Towns. You got to deal with Jokic. You got to deal with, even in the East, Embiid, Adebayo. Like, there's enough guys in the league that are going to give us trouble with Şengün. And Şengün is how many games into this new version of himself where he actually plays defense, less than 20. So I love that. I think he's playing all-star level basketball. I said it at the beginning of the year, the Rockets have a roster problem. It's not a big problem yet, and it's not about what they have now, Rob. It's about what they're going to do. What are the next steps for this team? Because this team is not a title contending team. Nobody thinks that. But the question's going to be, now, what do you do with the rest of the roster? That's what's the question. That's why they're struggling right now, is because they're a couple pieces away from being that team that can go in to a staple of whatever they're calling it now in LA and beating the Lakers and the Clippers and the Warriors consistently on the road. They're a couple pieces away. And that's the struggles that we're seeing now.
Yeah, I would love Capella as another option up front. I'm sure there's nobody that's going to argue with that. I don't know how everybody assumes that Atlanta's going to deal him or wants to deal him, but the Hawks are playing well, and I thought they were going to deal him in the offseason. I thought that was the time. The Rockets were on the phone with them anyway with that other trade, and I thought they could have turned that other trade into I thought if the Rockets and the Hawks were both interested in that,
right,
I thought that opportunity was there in the offseason. So, look, I would love it, but I'd be a little bit surprised unless the Hawks just start going downhill. But I want to put a little context on why I have more confidence in Jabari's offense and these bench situations, because the Rockets need, obviously, somebody that's going to give them more consistent offense and bench situation. That's been a huge issue for them. And while Jalen's overall shooting percentage has gone down, Jabari's has gone from just under 41% last season to 48% this year. It's nearly a 6.3% rise for him. His 3-point percentage jumped from 30.7 to 33.9. It's early, but just those numbers to me are worth noting. And Michael, I'm also a believer that Jabari is a better shooter when he puts the ball on the floor a couple of times. He needs that rhythm. He's a rhythm guy, and the stats bear this out. His best shooting percentage both this year and last year when he dribbles twice. More than twice, it drops off a ton. That twice usually means that post-up situation. So you put him at the elbow or you put him down in the post. But this year, when he takes just two dribbles, he's a 66.7% shooter. And his numbers were also way better in those situations, like I said, last year. So I guess that's my point.
I like it. I like it a lot. I love this team. You know what I mean? I love watching them play. They've got some issues. They just do. Every team does. But the Rockets are in a very tough spot right now because they're good. You can tell they're good. But what's next? Especially with a team that in the offseason is going to be staring down contract extensions for Alperen Şengün and Jalen Green. And I'm not sold that they're going to do it on Green. I think you have to do it with Şengün at this point. What I see is, you don't have one guy on this team right now that's averaging double-digit rebounds. That's a problem. The most that is averaged by any of the players on the Rockets right now is 8.8, and that's by Şengün.
I think Tari's the guy that's going to do it once he starts getting the regular minutes and his health gets – because Tari, we saw it last year, And I wanted him to play more last year. If he gets up to 25 to 30 minutes, he's getting you 10 boards easy.
I don't disagree with that, but then whose minutes are you taking away from if you're putting Tari on the court for 30 minutes?
Jock Landale, I'm taking away some of Jeff Green's minutes if I have to. But yeah, to me, it's it's mostly a 3-man big rotation of Jabari, Tari, and Şengün. And you could, whoever is playing the 4 or 5, however you want to match it up. To me, like I said, Tari, when Jabari's on the court, he plays more defensive center, even though he's a little bit smaller. He's just more physical or whatever. But to me, it's mostly those. And when you need Uncle Jeff to jump in there, and then he can jump in.
Yeah, and I like that a lot. It still doesn't solve the big problem off the bench, in my opinion. The way I see that they play now with Udoka, the 1 year that he was in Boston, he didn't have a traditional big brute in the middle either. He played with Al Horford and Robert Williams. So playing with those types of finesse bigs is right up Udoka's alleys, like you're talking about, putting Jabari at the 5. Do I love it? No, not in every situation. But I see where you're coming from, and so many other people. Udoka's going to put the best 5 guys for that situation on the court. It doesn't matter if they're 6'9", 6'10", 6'7". It doesn't matter.
Well, if it doesn't matter, then prove it and get Jock Landale. Look, I would rather Boban play at this point over Jock Landale.
It's pretty bad.
I would rather one of the assistant coaches, me,
Tiago Splitter. Yeah, I mean, put Tiago Splitter out there. I mean, Landale's horrendously bad right now. I mean, like bad. Yeah. It's comical because he's a professional. Like, I feel bad talking about him like that, but he sucks. Yeah. Like, he had a shot last night, a hook shot from like 6 feet away that missed by 4 feet. I don't even know how that's possible, but it's possible. If he's not going to rebound, which he's not doing, I mean, it's terrible. But to go back to Jabari real quick, the guy's averaging 13 and 7 right now. And Jalen, for everything, bad that he's doing on the court, he's averaging 18 points, nearly 5 rebounds, 3 assists. He turns the ball over a little too much, almost 2.5 times a game. But I think he's going to figure it out. Like I said, I'm a big fan of his. I'm a big fan of Jabari's. They're going to have some tough decisions to make because I do want to see Cam Whitmore get on the court as well at some point. I think he has too much talent to keep on the bench. I mean, way too much talent.
Yeah, and frankly, I mean, this is something I can go into at some other time. But yeah. I honestly believe that he's got more of a potential to be what we thought Jalen was going to be, but I'll get to that at some other point. But I do want to talk about Jalen for some other reasons and just kind of comparing the Jalen Jabari thing. And 3 weeks ago, you said you've seen me say it on Twitter, but I've said it on here. We did a show on it. 3 weeks ago, I said I have a hard time seeing Jalen turning into a perennial all-star, much less a superstar. As I knew it would, that got the Jalen fans a little bit in their feelings. And for some, the reaction was about, hey, what about Jabari? What about Well, Michael, I just didn't hear the expectation from Rockets fans or even draft experts that Jabari would be a superstar. I'd figure if everything went right, he could turn into an all-star. And I still believe in that potential more so than I do with Jalen for a couple of reasons. And just tell me if you agree. Here's my 2 big reasons. Number 1, attitude. There's a obvious difference in their demeanors. Jabari has shown just a whole lot more passion. I can see he hates to lose more. And there's just more alpha in his personality. That's, a big part of it. And I talked about it with Jalen. And it's one of my real things that bug me about Jalen is I just don't see the passion. I don't see the alpha. I don't see all that stuff. But reason number 2, while Jabari's defense has had awful moments, you said it earlier, he's flashed more moments of great defense than Jalen. There's more of a potential there, obviously. And last year was mostly a disaster, but that game against Giannis was special. Big guys are usually longer projects, Michael. Do you agree with that whole assessment?
It's a loaded question, man, because do I agree with most of what you said? Yes. Now, whether this is fair or not, I think some of the alpha that you're talking about, knowing the way Jalen grew up, he's a California kid. I'm not saying that's an excuse. He seems more like the surfer lifestyle. Like, bro, it's going to be fine. Everything's going to be okay. Jabari's more in your face. Like Jabari's interview, what did he say about, he thinks he could take Jordan in a game of one-on-one. Like that's Jabari's mindset. Jalen's not outspoken like that. And there's nothing wrong with those approaches. I like more of the Jabari mindset. Like I'm a huge fan of Dylan Brooks because he's so outspoken. and he backs up his talk. What I think Jalen is really struggling with right now, and we referenced it a little earlier, he's struggling going from being in no sort of, how do I want to say this? With Silas, he wasn't kept accountable for anything. Go out there, go play 5 out, go get your buckets. That's why his numbers have dipped this year, because Udoka is making him play in more of a system where he's no longer the focal point of the offense. Him and KPJ were the focal points of that offense. Jalen Green is not. You could argue he's the 4th or 5th option on most possessions, and that's hard for him. He's never been in that spot before. So it's less than 20 games into his career with Ime Udoka. I'm going to give it some more time. I'm not ready to write either one of them off. I'm high on both of them, especially the fact that Jalen's giving you 18 points a night on a rookie contract. Giving up on Jalen at this point, especially when he's not going to social media and becoming a distraction, there's nothing wrong with that, especially the fact that, he's averaging 5 rebounds a game, nearly 5 assists a game, which means he's still interacting in the offense. So, no, I mean, look, the team is 6-6. I think the schedule opens up with the teams that they're going to play. I think they're going to be fine. I think this, as I said at the beginning of the year, this is a playoff team. I think they're a top 8 team in the West, and I think Jalen is going to be a big part of it.
Yeah, a couple of things that you mentioned. You keep bringing up 18 points, but it's inefficient. I mean, it's a bad, inefficient 18 points. I mean, look, his efficiency has not improved one iota from year 1 to year 3. The only thing that you can give him is he's shot more free throws the last couple of years. That's the one thing. And that's the one thing that, I will still give him definitely over Jabari. I'm glad you mentioned his rebounds, because that's one thing that's ticked up this year a little bit, which is something that I was griping and moaning about all of last year. I'm like, dude, you are a top 5% NBA athlete, at least. Why aren't you jumping for rebounds? Why aren't you in there battling for rebounds with that size? So yeah, that's all well and good, but my concern with Jalen is it's typically a very inefficient. It's still, everybody got mad. All of Rockets Nation got mad when these other media people were like, oh, he's a shot chucker, whatever. I didn't think he was a shot chucker. I just thought he was a shot misser. And I think there's a difference. I don't think he was taking the worst shots for who he is. I just thought he was missing the shots that he was making. And I keep waiting for those to turn. I keep waiting for him to hit that wide open 16 or 18 footer that he typically gets. I keep waiting for him to be better at finishing at the rim, stop missing layups. And I also keep waiting, and this is the thing that really ticks me off. I keep waiting for him to develop a floater, at least start trying a floater, because look, Ja Morant is about his size. He's maybe an inch or two shorter. I don't know, but they're pretty close. They're both great athletes. The difference between him and Ja offensively isn't the fact that, Ja's he's explosive, just like Jalen. The difference is he's learned how to finish around the basket, and he's learned the floater. And that's a big deal. And I don't understand why Jalen, this is stuff that I just thought he would have worked on. And that's the other part about this. Jabari, everybody griped the whole year last year. Oh, he's never going to do anything off the dribble. You know what? Worked all off season. He's way better off the dribble. Tell me what about Jalen's game this year, like just from an offensive standpoint. You mentioned the rebounds, fine. But from an offensive standpoint, what have you seen that's different from year 1 to year 2 to year 3?
Well, his career numbers at the 3-point line, he's shooting better this year than he has in either of the 2 previous years.
A little bit.
No, it's a tick up. And, he's a career 41% from inside of the arc this year. He's at 39%. So he's not dropping off of a cliff shooting wise. The main difference between Ja Morant and him, one's a point guard and one's not. Jalen Green is not a point guard. Ja Morant is a point guard. So he's able to have the ball so much more in his hands, and he can work on those things that you're talking about. He's also the number 1 bona fide guy on that Memphis team, and it's not even close. Jalen's been that the last 2 years. He's not that this year. He has to learn how to play within the system that Udoka is building here in Houston. He's never done that before. Every other year, every other place he's been not only the number 1 guy, the superstar, the bona fide, give me the ball and get out of the way. He's not that guy anymore.
Nobody was taking more shots last year than he had. Plenty of chances last year to work on it. And still, I don't care if he's not taking 30 shots anymore. He's taken enough shots to where, you got to work on I don't care. He scored 20 points, or 18 points a game. You just said it. He's taking shots and he's not doing it. He's not taking shots efficient. It's not like he's taken, for his 18 points. It's not like he's taken 9 shots. If he was, we would all be having a party. He's taken plenty of shots. Trust me. He's not trying the thing that he's got to get good at, because there is just times where I just feel like, Jalen, man, quit trying to be cool. Quit trying to go for the cool factor and make the one-handed slam over some guy when you go to the basket. You're not good enough yet to be cool. You got to start making those shots around the basket before you can be cool.
I don't disagree with it. I don't disagree with any of that at all. He's made me want to, I got no hair, but he's made me want to pull my hair out before. You know what I mean? And just like Şengün has, we also have to remember this is his 3rd year. And the Rockets don't have a better option than him at the 2 right now anyway.
I'm not saying to, obviously I'm not saying to bench him.
No.
But I'm just saying, like,
more for the fans out there that are calling for him to be benched is silly and stupid. It just, like, it is. I think he's going to have the best game of the season tomorrow night, because I think it was a wake-up call. I do think him getting benched in the 4th quarter, for no disrespect to Aaron Holiday, if him or his family are listening to the show, which they absolutely should, Jalen Green should not be getting benched for Aaron Holiday. It's very reminiscent to when Harden got benched in the Clippers series, when Kevin McHale told Harden to sit his fat butt on the bench, and they rode with the guys that they had in the game. And Harden took that personally. I think Jalen Green's going to be the same way. I think we're going to see the best version of Jalen Green tomorrow night. I can't wait for this game tomorrow night against Memphis.
Yeah, and as far as Cam goes, there's a lot of issues that he was showing, as far as, being a little bit selfish with the ball and just not the ability to pass and stuff like that. But look, I mean, I've seen him in summer league. I've seen him in preseason. I've seen enough of Cam Whitmore to go, today, not in a year or two, today, Cam Whitmore is a better defensive player than Jalen Green is. And what I saw last night against Golden State, where he just was like lost, just totally lost. And it was almost that he gets daydreaming or something on defense. I'm like, what do you like? How do you lose Klay Thompson like he did in that game? I mean, there are too many moments with Jalen where he goes brain dead. Now there's less this year. There's more accountability. There's less this year. True. But, Cam Whitmore, that guy causes steals. He gets rebounds. He's physical. He can definitely handle guys in the post and deal with that more than Jalen Green. So all of that, he's already got the lead. And you can talk about, well, he'd be a terrible, inefficient guy coming in right now. But, we just did a whole thing on why Jalen's inefficient. So I don't know what to say.
And real quick on that, you say that you think Cam can do this at the NBA level. We simply don't know that. We as fans, we would think that he could do that. His frame would lead Rockets fans to believe we need to see more of him. We think, but he's got to get those minutes. And what I was talking about, just real quick, the logjam on this roster, you got Tate, you got Brooks, you have Eason, you have Amen Thompson. All of those guys are in that same, body type. You can't play all those guys. And that's why I think come deadline, hot take, the Rockets are going to be involved in a big deal. I don't know who it is yet. I don't have any inside sources, but look at the roster. They have a logjam at that spot. You don't draft a guy in the first round like Cam Whitmore with no expectations to play him. But right now, you can't play him over anybody. Tate's averaging 20 minutes a night. You're not going to sit Dylan Brooks. You have Tari Eason and you have Jabari. There's 4 guys already ahead of him. I don't want to send him to the G League. That's why expect a move at the deadline to clear some roster space.
Yeah, and, you say, where do you play him? I'll tell you what. There's no way I'd play Reggie Bullock over him at this point.
Oh, no.
And to see Reggie Bullock go out there, in that game against Golden State instead of Cam, I'm like, what's the point of that? To me, it's a total waste. And at least Cam can, if Cam gets on a heater, all of a sudden he could bring you back into that game. And Reggie Bullock hasn't shot 3-point shots worth a darn in November or December. And since he was 12, he struggles early in the season. and he doesn't do anything else for you, great, even good at this point. So I'm just like, that's why. And to me, I played Cam over Jock Landale. I moved Jeff Green. You know, if you don't want to play Jabari at center, then play Jeff Green or Jayshawn Tate, you know, or whatever, and just have a very switchable lineup. And at least, you know, Cam with his size, you can put him out there with those guys because he can handle some bigger guys with the physicality and stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. And you look at it, you look at a team like Atlanta, you know, if you can come away with a Clint Capella and a Wes Matthews for Jock Landale, Tate, and picks, you know, I love Jayshawn Tate, but by trading Tate, you open up those minutes for a Cam Whitmore. You also advance your shooting off the bench with a guy like Wes Matthews over Reggie Bullock. Those are the types of moves the Rockets are going to look to and say, okay, we have got to advance this roster in the middle of the season and still maintain their cap flexibility. Those are the types of moves that I'm looking for them to make. But again, I love where this team is at compared to where it was last year. This is light years ahead of where they've been. I agree with a lot of what you said, though. You've made some great points on Jalen and Jabari. You know, we haven't talked enough about Şengün. We could talk about the Rockets for hours, but yeah. Şengün is becoming an all-star. Fred VanVleet has been worth every penny. So is Dylan Brooks. Aaron Holiday's been a heck of a find. So yeah. Jeff Green, too. I mean, all four of those guys that the Rockets have signed in the offseason have been so good for this roster so far. I mean, so good for these young guys, and they're only going to get better. They're only going to get more comfortable in the system as we move throughout the season.
Yeah, you're just like every night you're like, okay, when is it? Are we going to see the Jalen? Are we going to see the Jabari that we want? And you know, it just you're getting anxious for it, and you want it to happen so bad. Kiss of Death podcast. Tell me what's going on with you guys, and what else you got?
Oh man, Jeremy Brenner and I, we go live on Twitter and on Facebook for the Dream Shake. After every single Rockets game, we're coming in. We're 15 episodes away from 500 episodes the last 4 years, so that's really exciting. So make sure to check out Kiss of Death on Twitter at RocketsFFSN. I'm at Mike Brown _2020. We're a part of the DreamShake.com. We're also very proudly a part of the Fans First Sports Network on all of our platforms. So make sure to give them a follow at Fans First SN.
So much great stuff out there in the Rockets space. I mean, love everybody that's watching you guys out there that's listening. I mean, it's just incredible. The Rockets fans in Houston and around the world, they care and they're so passionate about it as much as I think it's more than any fan base of all the Houston teams, which is pretty amazing.
Yes, sir.
Considering everything that's happened over the last 3 years. Thank you so much for doing it. Hey, I'm giving thanks because it's Thanksgiving week. I thank you for doing this and thank Ime Udoka for making it a much happier Thanksgiving this year than it was last year.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it so much. Great show, and I'd love to come back anytime.
You're listening to Houston Sports Talk.
Hey, don't forget to support us by subscribing and commenting on YouTube. You can always listen to us on Spotify, Apple, or your favorite podcast app. Tell your friends about us and share our show links on social media. Spread the word, everybody. Thanks for listening.